Good evening, folks, and welcome to the live stream. I hope you're all very well this evening. And let's go. The funny guillotine guy is back at it again. Okay, I hope that's not an insult. I'll take it as a compliment. So I hope you're all very well. Hope you had a nice week and you're ready for more crazy stuff this week. So, of course, the big story this time around is Peter Mandelson has resigned from the Labour Party and he has resigned from the House of Lords. So it was a case that the government were planning to push through legislation, or a number of MPs were pushing for legislation that would strip Peter Mandelson of his peership, of his peerage. But I think he's jumped before he was pushed. Now, what's also ironic about all of this is that Peter Mandelson may face criminal charges for corruption, for insider trading, stuff like this, while Donald Trump may not face any charges at all. And that's not just because he's the president, but it doesn't seem to be the case that anyone is going to be charged in the United States, where all of this began. Anyway, so I'm going to cover a few stories tonight. Of course, Peter Mandelson, the European Union, also what's happening with Elon Musk is really interesting. But before we get to all of that, I wanted to share with you this funny story involving Reform UK. Let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger so you guys can see it a bit better. So it says here, meanwhile, from Beth Rigby of Sky News, meanwhile, while the Mandelson scandal is galloping along, I hear that Robert Jenrick and Suella Braverman ended up with Labour MPs in the eye lobby on lifting the two-child benefit cap. Okay, so these are veteran politicians. These are not people who just joined Reform UK recently. These are, of course, former Conservative ministers, Secretary of State for, Home Secretary, one of them, and a government minister, the other. Both of these ex-Tory MPs ended up in the I lobby, so I or no lobby, on lifting the two-child benefit cap. A source tells me they got on their phones trying to get instructions from Farage as to whether they should, where they should be or where not. Whether they should be there or not. So they weren't sure whether they should be in the I lobby or in the no lobby. They tried to leave at one point but got trapped as the doors were locked. Reform sources confirmed that this happened and says that it was a genuine mistake and neither MP registered a vote. All Reform MPs voted against. So, of course, this is about lifting the two-child benefit cap. Reform UK have voted against that, even though they had said that they were supportive of removing the two-child benefit cap. Remember, Nigel Farage said it. So it seems a case of two MPs, veteran MPs, not newbies, ended up in the wrong lobby, that they've been through hundreds of times before, with the Labour Party, and then they realise, we're actually in the wrong place. Better get on the phone to Nigel, because Nigel decides everything. There is no independence within Reform UK. Why don't they just vote according to their own political opinion? Because they're not real people. They're not real politicians. They're just an extension of Nigel Farage. So if Farage says go this way, they go that way. Now, this is generally the case in most political parties, but Nigel Farage tries to present himself as somewhat independent, or that it's a real democratic party, but in reality it's a dictatorship and they don't do anything unless Nigel decides. And we've seen examples of that before. Great to see Reagan Elite on the stream tonight. Hope you're well. Where was Farage? In the bar? I don't know if he voted. There was a discussion, a debate on the Epstein files, and no one from Reform UK were there. And this is a bigger point I want to raise. Nigel Farage has been completely silent about the Epstein files. He's been quite vocal when it comes to Peter Mandelson and the corruption, the insider trading, sharing state secrets, stuff like this. Very vocal on that. But Nigel Farage has been extremely silent on Epstein. You know who's also been very silent? Tommy frigging Robinson. Tommy Robinson, nothing. I've seen nothing from Tommy Robinson over the last number of days. Isn't that strange? Because obviously he's somebody who's involved in this as well. So there are a lot of people who would be shouting from the rooftops when it comes to asylum seekers committing crimes. And I've said before, anyone who commits a crime against children should be locked up. I don't care if they're asylum seekers. I don't care if they're politicians. Both of them should be locked up. But when it comes to politicians or people on the right, Nigel Farage and Tommy Robinson, very silent about these types of individuals. That's so strange, isn't it? Very strange. Anyway, so there was a vote to lift the two-child benefit cap, and Reform MPs voted against it, even though Nigel Farage had said that he was going to do it if he got into power. So he's against something when he's not in power, but he claims to be for it when he is in power. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So it's not a principled position he takes. It's just a politically opportunistic one. Brad, thank you so much for that super chat. Mandelson has so much baggage. Flying with Ryanair would bankrupt him. I'm sure he could get a loan from some American friends to sort that out, though. Thanks, Brad, and well said. A lot of baggage. And Peter Mandelson believes that he can get back in again. He can ride out this storm. He shouldn't. He should be gone forever. He should be in jail, actually, and there's a possibility that he will end up in prison. But Graham's Politics, great to see everyone from Graham's Politics. Thanks for coming on. Hope you're all very well. Incoming radar from PS. Hi, everyone. Hi, Pete. Baggage or slaggage? Yes. Good question. Anyway, moving from one individual connected to the Epstein files to another. So this is not the Spanish Prime Minister, but Elon Musk. So the Spanish Prime Minister, along with other countries, Spain along with other countries, are, clamping down on Grok and X when it comes to the information, the material they've been sharing online. So have a listen to this.
Starting next week, my government will implement the following actions. First, we will change the law in Spain to hold platform executives legally accountable for many infringements taking place on their sites.
Well done. This needs to happen. This should have happened a long time ago. Issuing fines is not sufficient. What used to be the case is Facebook was moderated. Then Mark Zuckerberg decided, let's get rid of the moderation and just have it as a free-for-all. And it attracted the worst types of people. The same with X, used to be called Twitter. Remove the moderation, just allow a free-for-all. And of course, it has become a cesspit. And Elon Musk wants to maintain that, amplifying the worst individuals in society. Amplifying them, he gets a benefit from that, and they get a benefit from it. So it's not an equal platform. And of course, we've seen the recent scandal involving AI-generated imagery. We have a super chat from Kirsty. Thank you so much, Kirsty. They raised the Epstein files again to cover up the Melania film. Yes. It's like... It's terrible. I haven't seen it, okay, and I presume nobody on the stream has seen it, and nobody knows anyone on the stream who's seen it. Allegedly, the director of the film met with Jeffrey Epstein. Isn't that interesting? And allegedly, Jeffrey Epstein is the guy who introduced Melania to Donald Trump, or Trump to Melania. I'm not sure which the order was. This guy had a lot of connections going all around the world. There are Russian connections, there are Israeli connections, there are Middle Eastern connections, there are connections to all sorts of places. And you know who isn't on the Epstein list? Bernie Sanders. Okay, Bernie Sanders isn't, as an American. So at least there's some good ones, good politicians. Thanks, Kirsty. Yeah. So let's talk about the Epstein files. So we don't have to. So we can cover up the Melania film, an absolute disaster. And Fox News are calling for it to be given an Oscar. For what? Anyway, back to the Spanish Prime Minister.
This means that CEOs of these techno platforms will face criminal liability for failing to remove illegal or hateful content.
Once again, this is the right approach. It can't be just issuing fines. It has to be a criminal investigation. People have to face real charges because, multimillionaires and billionaires are happy just to throw money at the problem. But if they have to go to prison, they will make sure that their platforms are clean.
And for that, we governments need to stop turning a blind eye to the toxic content shared under their watch. Second, we will turn algorithmic manipulation and amplification of illegal content into a new criminal offense. Disinformation doesn't appear by itself. It is created, promoted, and spread by certain actors. We will go after them as well as after the platforms whose algorithms amplify the disinformation for profit. No more hiding behind code. No more pretending that technology is neutral. Third, we will implement a hate and polarization footprint, a system to track, quantify, and expose how digital platforms fuel division and amplified hate. For too long, hate has been treated as invisible and untraceable. But we will change that, developing a tool that will provide the basis for undertaking future penalties. Because spreading...
Brilliant. Brad, thanks so much for that super chat. Max hasn't seen the Melania film, but he has seen The Human Centipede, which is essentially the same film. I think the Melania film is more gory. That's the difference. Thanks, Brad. Oh my goodness.
Hate must come at a cost. A legal cost, of course, a financial cost, and a moral cost that platforms can no longer afford to ignore. Fourth, Spain will ban access to social media for minors under the age of 16. Platforms will be required to implement effective age verification systems, not just checkboxes, but real barriers that work. Today, our children are exposed to a space they were never meant to navigate alone. A space of addiction, abuse, pornography, manipulation, violence. We will no longer accept that.
Isn't it interesting how parties on the right keep lamenting how we have lost our way, we need to go back to purer times, when it's actually politicians on the left who are saying we need to clamp down on this type of filth that young people have access to, these type of violence that young people have access to. We need to protect them. We need to protect the innocence of young people. This is what the left-wing parties are trying to do in many cases. Well, it's the right-wing parties who are saying, no, we would like to go back to those times, but no, don't touch social media. Don't take away our ability to pump out the worst type of material into the eye sockets of young people.
We will protect them from the digital Wild West. Fifth and last, my government will work with our public prosecutor to investigate and pursue the infringement committed by Grok, TikTok, and Instagram. We will have zero tolerance on this matter, and we will defend our digital sovereignty against of foreign coercion.
Brilliant. When it comes to Putin, when it comes to maybe even the United States at this stage, democracies need to be protected. And it's important that there are governments stepping forward to deal with the likes of Elon Musk and others. Also, the British government are doing something similar. Not to the same extent, but have a listen to this.
Breaking developments to bring you from the UK's Information Commissioner's Office that has opened formal investigations into X and Grok. the artificial intelligence system. They say they've taken this step following reports that Grok has been used to generate non-consensual sexual imagery of individuals, including children. William Malcolm, Executive Director of Regulatory Risk and Innovation at the Information Commissioner's Office, said the following, and I paraphrase slightly, but the reports about Grok raise deeply troubling questions about how personal data is being used to generate intimate or sexualized images without knowledge or consent, and whether necessary safeguards put in place to prevent this. Losing control of personal data can cause immediate and significant harm, particularly the case where children are involved. Our role is to address the data protection concerns at the centre of this, recognising that other organisations have important responsibilities, working closely with Ofcom and international regulators to ensure roles are aligned and that people's safety and privacy are protected. We will continue to work in partnership as part of coordinated efforts to create trust in digital services. Our investigation will assess whether the systems behind Grok have complied with data protection law in the development and deployment of Grok services, including safeguards in place to protect people's data rights. Where we find obligations have not been met, we will take action to protect the public. And just also hearing that the UK's Ofcom, the online regulator, saying that it has set out its next steps in its investigation into X. The investigation remains ongoing. We continue to work closely with the ICO as well, finally saying that they're progressing the investigation into X as a matter of urgency.
So this is a step in the right direction, of course, when it came to what we saw recently involving images of women and children. And it's great that the government is taking this step and giving Ofcom, hopefully, the powers to deal with this. Now, remember, we were hearing recently that they were going to shut down X. It seems that's not the case at the moment. But I think more pressure is going to be applied to Elon Musk and his outfit, and it can only be welcomed. Okay, let's move on to our next story, which is, of course, Peter Mandelson, the main one tonight. So, oh my goodness, it's just going to get worse and worse. No, that's not what I wanted. Let me bring up the other one. Don't know why that appeared. So police launch investigation into claims Mandelson leaked confidential information to Epstein. So police launch investigation into Mandelson over allegations of misconduct in public office. The Metropolitan Police has launched an investigation into Peter Mandelson over allegations of misconduct in public office, confirming earlier reports. Commander Ella Marriott of the Metropolitan Police said following the further release of millions of court documents in relation to Jeffrey Epstein by the United States Department of Justice, the Met received a number of reports into alleged misconduct in public office, including a referral from the UK government. I can confirm that the Metropolitan Police has now launched an investigation into a 72-year-old man, a former government minister, for misconduct in public office offences. The Met will continue to assess all relevant information brought to our attention as part of this investigation and won't be commenting any further at this time. So he's in trouble. He's in serious trouble. I don't think Mandy is going to come back. I'm talking, when I say Mandy, I mean the bad Mandy, not the good Mandy in chat. Okay. Peter Mandelson. I don't think Peter Mandelson is going to come back from this. He's come back from previous scandals, but they did not involve him going to prison. Mandelson cannot be defeated by any prison or Sorry, thanks, Brad. Mandelson cannot be defeated by any prison or craft we have here. He was conceived in the fires of Mount Doom. Only there can he be unmade. I'm sorry. Oh my goodness. Okay, breathe. As a Lord of the Rings fan, I appreciate that. Who will be Frodo? Keir Starmer? No. Who would Keir Starmer be in Lord of the Rings? Boromir? or Denethor, maybe Denethor, I'm not sure. Oh my goodness. Freckle Bunny, thanks so much for that super chat. The ghost of Jimmy Savile says, I am named in the Epstein files. If not, why not? Damn it. Yes. If he maybe he is actually. I don't know if people have done any research. He's probably before. He was before the time of Epstein because it was around the year 2000, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was. You know, the royal family in particular. The former Prince Andrew is, of course, deeply involved. But there may be other royals involved as well. Like the idea that Prince Andrew or Andrew Mountbatten brought Epstein to Buckingham Palace. Like, how many people are able to go to Buckingham Palace? I mean, in a sort of informal way. Does this thing happen all the time? Like, I also have to ask the question, people knew about this. Can you imagine all the people who went to the island or all the people who had interactions with Epstein and saw stuff? Because, it was happening all the time. None of these people thought, maybe we should report this guy to the police. No, they didn't. Why did they not do that? Why was it that the victims had to come forward and report Epstein and people to the police? But none of these men, these multimillionaires, these billionaires, these tech giants, none of these people, these politicians, none of these people thought, maybe we should report something to the police. Maybe we should say something. None of them did. It was only the victims that came forward. Starmer's too boring. He's Chamberlain. Keir Starmer would probably be Frodo. Some guy caught up in some shit that is way beyond him, and would make him the right or that'd make him make the right or wrong decision. Would it be taken seriously? I think it would have to be reported. Like, if somebody pretty important went to the police, I think the police would be willing, because we're talking about rich people, we're talking about millionaires, we're talking about billionaires. Farage would be worm-tongue, yes. Farage would be Gollum, but Gollum sort of, no, he wasn't redeemed. Farage cannot be redeemed, but I like Brad's. Peter Mandelson can only be undone in the fires of Mount Doom. But I don't think he's going to come back from this. I think this is over for Peter. It should be over. If it's not over for Peter Mandelson, this is really serious. More on this.
It was treacherous. It was the most appalling behaviour. I'm really profoundly distressed by it. It is so scandalous.
Stephen Flynn, then, you have reported Peter Mandelson to the police.
Yes. Rightly there was a lot of talk today about peerages, but when I was looking at the details which were emerging, primarily thanks to Dan's excellent work, I thought we should instead be talking about the police and potentially prison, because what we have seen is potentially insider trading from within the very heart of a Labour government, with sensitive financial information relevant to all our lives being passed directly to what was notorious international.
Sorry, ChatGPT seems to be having trouble looking for the Savile mentions. Don't just go directly to the Department of Justice files. If you search for that, I'm not going to do it here, but if you search for Department of Justice in the US, go to the Epstein files, you'll find them. But also, if you're searching for names, also because sometimes there may be typos or they may be spelt wrong. So try different variations of the same name.
National paedophile, but also someone who's worked in the financial markets in America, and the seriousness of this demands a serious response. I thought that the government's attempt to focus on a peerage was right in one sense, but didn't go far enough, which is why I chose to report the matter to the police myself.
Do you back Stephen Flynn reporting it to the police?
Yeah, I think I might have suggested it. So I don't agree with Stephen always, but I agree with him on all of this. It was treacherous. was the most appalling behaviour. I'm really profoundly distressed by it. It is so scandalous, taking advantage of having. Like if you're in the cabinet and you're essentially acting on behalf of people abroad against your own government, passing on secrets like, oh, the Prime Minister's about to resign, I finally persuaded him to, talking about secret tunnels under, from number 10. I mean, this is...
It's beyond ridiculous. But Peter Mandelson cared more about Peter Mandelson and his connections to celebrities than he did about his own country. Because Jeffrey Epstein didn't have the interests of Britain at heart.
It's completely unforgivable. And I'm really, really shocked at it. Really shocked.
Dan Needle, you have been looking through these Epstein files over the weekend and today, and these emails keep coming. What do you highlight this evening?
So most recently, there's some emails concerning Larry Summers, the US Treasury Secretary. There was a meeting between him and the Chancellor. A minute of that meeting was sent by Mandelson's private secretary to Mandelson. And this was a very sensitive meeting discussing
to Epstein. Okay.
changes in US bank regulation. It would have been, I expect, of the highest interest for Epstein and the people around him. And
so he didn't just betray the UK, he also betrayed the US.
Mandelson sent it just a few minutes later to Epstein. Epstein didn't just receive it passively, he then asked some quite detailed questions about the wording of the regulations Summers had been discussing.
We're starting to get a better picture of what Epstein was doing, apart from the sex scandals, apart from the abuse. He was also using his position. I have contacts in different governments, and I can tell you what these governments are going to do before the governments make these decisions. And he could sell that to business leaders. So he was like a conduit. He was like a guy with a special telephone. And he could find out what was going to happen when it came to, for example, the 500 billion euro bailout back in 2009, I think it was, or 2010. The UK government was, of course, a member of the European Union, so it was privy to it, but it was supposed to sit on this information until it had been released by the Commission. But Peter Mandelson shared this information with Jeffrey Epstein, and Jeffrey Epstein shared this information with bankers, with investors. So they were able to drop their investments or make certain investments before the information was released. So they were able to profit from that situation. Like, did Peter Mandelson not think this would eventually happen? I would be found out at some stage. But how would you sleep at night? What was Peter Mandelson getting in return, or was he being blackmailed? We've heard of money changing hands, but this is probably just the tip of the iceberg. Ivan, thank you so much for that super chat. McSweeney has surely got to be shown the door now. Labour MPs, Labour councillors and Labour Party members must demand McSweeney be sacked or strongly urge him to resign. I think we're going to see a lot of pressure applied to Morgan McSweeney, and rightly so. I think it's certainly going to come from Labour MPs. They're going to put immense pressure on the Prime Minister to sack Morgan McSweeney. But the problem for Starmer is that if he does get rid of Morgan McSweeney has built his entire system, his entire platform. Keir Starmer's platform is built by, in a sense, Morgan McSweeney. So if Morgan McSweeney goes, what does Keir Starmer do then? Who's going to advise him? Because if he brings on somebody else, they're going to have a different ideology to Keir Starmer's. But I don't see Starmer lasting very long. I think this is death by 1,000 cuts. And he'll be lucky to last until May. I have said before, I think Keir Starmer is safe until May. But then this scandal came out, this information about Peter Mandelson. And opposition parties are going to try and link this as much as possible to Keir Starmer. How much did Keir Starmer know? Why didn't he act on what he knew? We all knew that Peter Mandelson had connections had maintained a friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, even though when he was in prison, I believe. Yeah, he was in prison. Like, this is something I have to go off on a tangent just for a moment. If I discovered my friend was a paedophile, I'll cut him off completely. If I discovered my friend had a friend who was a paedophile and they maintained that friendship, I would cut off that friend straight away. Why would, if you discovered that your friend Jeffrey Epstein was in jail for what he did, why would you maintain friendship with him? In the same way as Trevor Phillips from Sky News has maintained a friendship with Peter Mandelson, even though he knew that Peter Mandelson was still friends with Jeffrey Epstein. Like, what's wrong with these people? Is it that I have some sort of ridiculously high standard or something? I don't understand this. Thanks, Ivan. But I think there's going to be immense pressure on Morgan McSweeney to go. But then I think Morgan McSweeney, he's so tied to Starmer. If Morgan McSweeney goes, it's going to be difficult for Starmer to maintain his position.
Was the word may used? Was the word shall used? There's even a suggestion Mandelson might raise it with Summers at a meeting the next day. Then Mandelson had that meeting the next day with Summers. Mandelson's private secretary passed him minutes, sent him minutes by email of the meeting, as you normally would, and within seconds Mandelson flicked it across to Epstein.
That is quite... I mean, I can see you two shaking your heads as Dan Needle is describing those private minutes. It's quite extraordinary.
It's those private minutes, but it's at that time. You know, when Gordon Brown and his team were trying to save the economy, were trying to save the world economy, were doing everything they could, were up night and day trying to do this, and in their midst there was somebody working against them and working for other interests, the interests of a man like Epstein, who's given the years before, but given money to Mandelson and his husband. I mean,
on that point,
shocking.
You will know that Lord Mandelson's statement over the weekend was that he doesn't know if those bank statements were authentic.
It's like Mandelson's response is, I got 75,000. I don't. Did I receive 75,000 pounds from Jeffrey Epstein? I don't remember receiving. Like, how many of you on the stream have received about 75,000 pounds or 75,000 euros or $75,000 from somebody and you didn't remember receiving it? God.
And he needed to investigate them himself.
Yeah, no, I mean, there are bank statements from JP Morgan, allegedly, which show 3 payments of $25,000 each. And it might be that they are forged. And it might not be.
Yeah, look, this feels like an enormous
I've seen a lot of
potato.
bank statements. They look like bank statements.
Exactly, Dan. Exactly.
I'll take Dan's word for it then.
Yeah.
Okay. Nick, where are we tonight with all this?
Well, Vic, in the last few hours, we've had Peter Mandelson's first interview since the latest round of emails were released. This is an interview the Times did. They did it mainly on the 25th of January at his home in Wiltshire, but they went back to him on Sunday night after he stepped down from the Labour Party. Peter Mandelson described Jeffrey Epstein, likened him to dog muck, the smell that won't go away. And then listen to what Peter...
Dog muck. The smell that won't go away. It's like, yeah... Jeffrey Epstein is a problem for me. Not that Jeffrey Epstein is a bad person and I should never have associated myself with him and I should not have taken money from him. No. He's a stain that I would like to clean away. Like, once again, trying to exit himself from this situation. He's deeply involved in this situation. You know, I'd actually have more respect for Peter Mandelson if he just came out and said, yeah, I took money from Jeffrey Epstein because I was weak, or because I wanted a house in Brazil, or I wanted this, or I wanted that. I was corrupted. I'm a terrible person. I'd actually have more respect for him if he did that. But of course, he's doing the typical politician response in, no, I don't remember taking this, or I don't recall, or I have no memory of receiving this money, or I need to investigate myself whether I received this £75,000.
Peter Mandelson said on the 25th of January about his sacking by Keir Starmer last year as UK ambassador to the US. He said it was like a 5:30 a.m. drive-by shooting. Suddenly I was at the centre of it as a result of historical emails of which I had no memory and no record. And then he said it felt like being killed without actually dying.
Can we please feel sorry for Peter Mandelson now? Let's all, have a moment's silence for Peter Mandelson, because he's the real victim here, guys. It's not the people who were abused, children, including children, that were abused by Jeffrey Epstein. No, the real victim here is Peter Mandelson, because he felt betrayed by the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister who had hired him, for what reason I don't know, but hired him to be a go-between between the UK government and the US. And look, he had these emails from a long time ago associated with a convicted paedophile, people trafficker, we have to think about the pain that Peter Mandelson is going through at the moment.
Okay, well, I can hear you sighing, Stephen Flynn. Why are you responding like that?
Yeah, look, the one thing that we can't forget here is that Jeffrey Epstein abused young women and girls. He's a paedophile. The notions that in any way Peter Mandelson is the person we should be feeling sorry for about any of this is frankly absurd.
I think the other point is that it was open to Peter Mandelson at any time to tell us how bad things were. But instead, he kept lying and saying, oh no, I don't think, no, there's nothing in that, and no, it's as far as it goes.
What he said is he couldn't recall most of this.
Can't recall anything.
I mean, obviously, Peter Mandelson did recently apologise to the Epstein survivors. But in this interview, the Times went back to him on Sunday, and Peter Mandelson seems to be suggesting that he could continue to have a role in public life. He says,
there we have it. He still believes he can have a role in public life. Like, this guy obviously thinks he done nothing wrong. He's going to apologise just to get over this. But in reality, Peter Mandelson believes, I'm the real victim here. And I can, of course, have another life. He should be in jail. That's where he should be. Not planning a return. Not planning to be in the next government. Not planning to be advising the next government. Ivan, thanks so much for that super chat once again. I know it's the opposition's role, but the Tories have... Sorry, let me scroll back up again. I know it's the opposition's role, but the Tories have got a terrible amount of brass neck. They have no room whatsoever to preach about morals or integrity. They should be locked up. They should be looking they should be looking in the mirror at themselves. I agree 100%. The Conservatives who are coming out about this are utter hypocrites. They were completely silent when Boris Johnson and their party were taking money from Russia. Completely silent. Boris Johnson, of course, playing tennis with the wife of a former Russian Putin minister. She paid, or he received, I think it was £250,000. Somebody paid £250,000 to play tennis with Boris Johnson, a Russian. I joked before, maybe she thought she was playing tennis with Boris Becker and she got Boris Johnson instead. Did she get a refund? No. The Conservative Party were open for business. They didn't care where the money was coming from. That's all they care about, the money. So they're in no position to criticise the Labour government. They're in no position to call out the Labour government because their hands are just as dirty. But it's but the reality is now the Labour Party are in power and they will have to take responsibility for this because Keir Starmer decided to put Peter Mandelson into that role. Look, if Keir Starmer had chosen somebody else, Gordon Brown as ambassador to the US or somebody else, we wouldn't really be talking about. They'd be talking about Peter Mandelson, but the government could distance themselves from that. Keir Starmer could say, it's nothing to do with me. Peter Mandelson used to be a government minister. He's nothing to do with me. But because he put him into that position as ambassador to the US, in order to soften up Trump. How well did that work? And was it worth it? Because this could potentially bring down the Labour government. This could certainly damage Keir Starmer to a point where he can never recover. You know, we keep focusing on the local elections, but I think this could be much more damaging, because there's a likelihood that Peter Mandelson will go to jail. There's no coming back from that, unless he's going to defect to Reform UK.
I'm a new Labour person and always will be, wherever the party is. And then he says, but I think I want to see change. I want to be more of an outsider looking in rather than the other way around. And then this, I want to contribute ideas that enable Britain to strengthen and to work for all in every part of the country. So Peter Mandelson still thinks he's a big figure. And it is important to say that he's been at senior levels of the Labour Party for nearly half a century. He was New Labour. Alexander did say that's a high risk, high reward approach. But today, Vic, it's been a very, very dramatic day, moving quickly. I was on the Today programme first thing, and the guidance from government was, we don't want to do primary legislation to kick him out from the Lords. That's still the position, but the government, the Prime Minister, is now asking for a cross-party consensus to change the rules to kick people out of the House of Lords. Darren Jones, Chief Secretary of the Prime Minister.
Like, why are we talking about this now? Why wasn't this done ages ago? Why did it have to wait? Why did it have to get to a stage where Peter Mandelson is resulting in legislation involving kicking people out of the House of Lords? Peter Mandelson is not the first member of the House of Lords that has got up to no good. Michelle Mone, why is she still a member of the House of Lords? Maybe she has resigned, I don't know. But why was she not removed? Why did the government not move heaven and earth to kick people like her out? What about Lebedev? He's still a member of the House of Lords, as far as I know. And you can't become the Lord of Siberia without the permission of Vladimir Putin. He holds two positions. Boris Johnson put him in the House of Lords. Why? Because he's a friend. What else did he do for Boris Johnson, apart from inviting him to weird clubs and weird parties?
Minister talking about how there's now a Cabinet Secretary investigation into Jeffrey Epstein and Peter Mandelson links. Then, of course, you had the Met investigation. In the last few minutes, the Prime Minister has said of that, the government has said it's right for the police to determine whether to investigate, and the government stands ready to provide whatever support and assistance the police need.
And that's right, but it's a bit late at this stage. Brad, thanks so much for that super chat once again. Take that picture of Mandelson in his pants and swap him with Starmer. That's the picture McSweeney is using to blackmail Starmer to stay in post with. It's like, I have this big. It's like, are you sure that's me? Yes, it's you. Thanks, Brad. Oh my goodness.
On that point, in the House of Commons chamber today, I posed that very question to the Prime Minister. He chose not to answer. I posed a very similar question to Darren Jones himself. He chose
on what specifically?
In relation to the police investigation, whether the police should be doing that. And this all comes back to judgment. Keir Starmer chose a political appointment to be ambassador in Peter Mandelson. He knew about the connection between Peter Mandelson and Jeffrey Epstein. He chose to ignore it. He chose to ignore that past in order to...
And this is what I don't get. And I think this is where Morgan McSweeney comes in. I don't think Keir Starmer thought it was a good idea to put Mandelson into that position. But Morgan McSweeney thought it was a good idea. And this is the problem with Morgan McSweeney. Morgan McSweeney should not be there. He should have been fired a long time ago. But Keir Starmer can't fire him because Morgan McSweeney is the one who's running the show, it seems. So getting rid of Morgan McSweeney, Starmer is up a creek without a paddle. That's the problem here. He can't get rid of him because he needs him, but he can't keep him because he's a huge liability. Oh my goodness. The question is, who was Epstein working for? I think Epstein was working for himself, but he was like a conduit. So he was funneling money into different places. So, for example, there were people who wanted Brexit. They wanted to see the UK out of the European Union. So they wouldn't give money directly to, the Brexit party. So they would do it through subsidiaries. They would do it through Epstein, for example. Or Epstein would organize meetings between people. And he would get a cut, probably. Or he would ask for some favor in return for that. So he worked as a sort of middleman for anything. And I think this is what we're going to see later on when all the files come out. Epstein was working as a sort of, I can get you anything you want, and I mean anything. You name it, I can get it for you. You want something done, I can get it done for you. I won't be doing it, but I know the people who will. And I can have it all done behind the scenes. And in the same way as when it came to Peter Mandelson. Peter Mandelson one is a perfect example. People in the city or people who run massive financial organizations, they wanted access to information. They couldn't go directly to the UK government, but they knew there was somebody in the government who was willing to share this information. And how could they couldn't go directly to Peter Mandelson. Instead, what they did was they went to Jeffrey Epstein. And Jeffrey Epstein facilitated that flow of information. He was that tube. He was that conduit. He was that pipeline. And once again, I don't know if he got money. He probably got money out of it sometimes, or he got some sort of favors out of it. And also, I think some people say the conspiracy is that he had all this information on people. And I think there is part of that. I think that was his insurance policy. I have clips, I have videos, I have photographs, I have texts, I have emails, I have all this information. So if anything were to happen to me, it would be released. And this was his insurance policy against the people who he was, in some cases maybe blackmailing, or some cases conning. But he was always prepared for, hey, if something happens to me, all of this information comes out. So you better make sure nothing happens to me. So he had this hold over people. But I think somebody thought, I can't take this risk. We need to get rid of him. And of course, the rest is history. Ivan again, thanks so much, Ivan. McSweeney is just as bad as Cummings, but in different ways, of course. Yes, McSweeney is a bit like Dominic Cummings. Dominic Cummings is a bit more, I don't want to say ruthless, but a bit more out there. Morgan McSweeney is much more professional, and I don't know which is worse. Because one is ruthless, he doesn't care about the rules, doesn't care about how things operate, while Morgan McSweeney works within the existing framework and is able to manipulate. Because what Morgan McSweeney is doing is there's nothing illegal in what he's doing by, hey, putting pressure on the Prime Minister to appoint particular individuals. But he's destroying the Conservative, he's destroying the Labour Party, and he's destroying the Labour government. He's destroying it from within. I would almost guess that McSweeney is working for Reform UK, or he's working for the Conservatives, because he's benefiting. These policies are benefiting them. It's not benefiting the Labour Party. Like, what do people associate with the Labour Party today? You know, a government that was freezing old people, taking money off the most vulnerable in society. That's what they associate with the Labour Party, the Labour government. Not a party improving the situation for ordinary people. And that's why Starmer needs to get rid of Morgan McSweeney and put in place somebody who actually understands how to achieve these goals, how to stay in power. And Morgan McSweeney maybe was good at convincing Starmer to take certain choices to get into power, but holding on to that is completely different. Anyway, guys, let's move on to another story here. As we know, there's a by-election coming up in Gorton and Denton. And a number of parties are running. We have the Green Party, we have the Labour Party, we have the Conservatives, and of course we have Reform UK. But it seems that the Workers' Party of Britain is not contesting this, so this should actually help the Green Party to a certain extent. So the Workers' Party of Britain has said it has taken a difficult decision not to contest the Gorton and Denton by-election. The party led by George Galloway said it was in the best of interest of the working class to withdraw from the election. In a statement, it said it would not choose a candidate for the Greater Manchester seat from the 4 it had considered. At the general election in 2024, Galloway's party got 10.3% of the vote and came fourth. The by-election was triggered by the resignation of Andrew Gwynn, who said he was stepping down for health reasons that have been aggravated over the last year by the fallout from a leaked message from a controversial WhatsApp group. So it's going to be interesting. So it's interesting for the Greens that the Workers' Party is not running, Oh, geez, the cosplaying cat. Yes. If Reform get into power, we are screwed. We are so much. We'll have a referendum on, or Phillips, or Phillips. Yes. Perhaps this strengthens the credentials of the Greens as front runners in Gorton and Denton. Yes, I think it will certainly help the Green Party because it means that the left-wing vote is no longer split this way. Of course, there is the Labour Party. Now, Labour are saying that, hey, we have a massive majority here. We won this seat the last time with a 13,000 majority. So we are in pole position. So the Green Party should step aside. But the Green Party are saying if you look at the polling, we're doing much better than the Labour Party. And we're neck and neck with Reform UK. So it would make sense. So you have a situation where the Greens are telling Labour to step aside, and you have the same situation where the Labour Party are telling the Greens to step aside. And if the vote is split, of course, it will help Reform UK. Now, when it comes to Reform, they have their own problems because the Conservatives are starting to increase their support over the last number of weeks and months. So they could eat into the support that's generally going to Reform. I really hope that Reform lose, because, not just because I disagree with Reform, but Matt Goodwin has no interest in the constituency. You know, if it had been a local person from Reform, I wouldn't be so cynical or so critical. But Matt Goodwin has no interest in that constituency. He has as much interest in that constituency as Nigel Farage has in Clacton. You know, he might even spend less time than Nigel Farage spends in Clacton. He's been going around knocking on doors, trying to convince people to come out and vote for him. I think the people of that constituency would be voting against their own interests if they vote for Reform. Once again, if it had been a local person, I wouldn't be so critical. But Matt Goodwin was dropped from an air balloon by a Reform UK air balloon. He's not going. If he wins or loses, he will be out of there. That's the difference. That's the thing. You know, people who are voting for this party in Gorton and Denton have to realise that when you're going to vote for Matt Goodwin, he's not going to be there for you. He's not going to be opening surgeries and listening to your concerns about potholes or about hospital appointments and stuff like that. He won't give a shit. Sorry to be so frank. If you don't believe me, look at what Nigel Farage is doing in Clacton. Like, at least Lee Anderson, I believe, meets with members of his constituency. You know, he was previously there as a Conservative. So at least I'm no fan of Lee Anderson, okay? But at least he's from the area. Matt Goodwin is not. And he frankly doesn't give a shit. I will never forgive George Galloway for the abhorrent comments about LGBTQ plus people. He's a piece of crap, yes. George Galloway is a piece of crap. And he's a friend of Nigel Farage, of course. He treats Nigel Farage as a friend. Thanks, Ivan. Yeah, he's a horrible individual. And he's a carpetbagger as well. He just goes where he thinks he can win a seat. It doesn't actually represent a constituency. It's just about creating a power base for himself. And he's, of course, a narcissist, so he wants attention as well. But it's good that his party is standing aside. Sorry, Ivan, I just see your other super chat. One of the fundamental problems in politics is egos, which are entrenched, not with all politicians, but most. Yeah, if you look at the people who get to the top, generally are egotistic. They are narcissists. The people who actually care about their constituents generally are on the backbenches. So I'm not saying all politicians are bad. I think probably most of them are good, but the bad ones rise to the top. That's the problem. The ruthless ones rise to the top. Generally, not all, but unfortunately, you have to be ruthless in politics if you want to succeed. And it takes a particular type of person to climb over the dead bodies of others to get to the top. So it's a sort of catch-22. If you're a good person, you're not going to really do very well. If you're a bad person, you're going to do well. But in order to do well, you have to be a bad person. Not always, but generally. Thanks, Ivan, again. Fedora topped grift. Yes, this is not a fedora. This was a kind gift by members of the channel. So I want to say, for anyone who doesn't know, members of the channel sent this to me many moons ago, and I appreciate it always. Galloway also physically embraced Steve Bannon. Yeah, he's a friend of Nigel Farage, a friend of Steve Bannon, like, you know, a real lefty. Okay. A real working class guy. Someone who cares about working class people. You know, a friend of Nigel Farage and a friend of Steve Bannon. I don't know if maybe George Galloway's in the Epstein files, or maybe not. Not you, Max. Gorgeous George. Anyway, let's move on. There actually might cover the other one towards the end of the live stream, but I want to show you this clip about EU has open mind to the UK Customs Union debate, says Commissioner.
Very active conversation, I'm sure you're aware of it, but within UK politics, within the governing party, about the UK rejoining a customs union. What do you make of that?
We are ready to engage with an open mind and seek those areas of cooperation.
Sure, but could you see mutual benefit in a closer single market relationship?
Certainly there are mutual benefits. The best mutual benefits are within the single market, but well, we're currently not quite there.
Yes. But there could be some middle ground there. Some give and take, maybe?
Yeah, with a middle ground. That's why I was mentioning this point, that a single market comes with 4 freedoms: free movement of goods, services, capital, and labor. It's not possible to pick and choose, say, oh, we want...
Exactly, and this is the problem. So, in order to keep Brexiteers happy, Keir Starmer and the government are trying to say, no, we don't want to join the customs union or the single market. We don't want to join the single market because we would have to take on the 4 freedoms. And one of those freedoms we certainly do not want to take on, of course, the freedom of movement of people. But if you want, I keep saying this, it makes more sense for the UK to rejoin the EU than just the customs union or just the single market. Because at least if you're a member of the EU, you have automatic access to the single market and you're at the table making the decisions. So wouldn't it make more sense for the UK to be at the table making the decisions, saying, look, hey, let's improve the single market for us, but also for everyone else. And we can be part of that decision-making process. But instead, it's, we better keep, excuse me, people. Sorry about that. Instead, it's we need to keep Reform UK at bay. We need to be tough on immigration. So we're going to close off the idea of joining the single market because that involves freedom of movement. We don't want to bring back freedom of movement. Whenever you notice that whenever the issue of the Erasmus scheme was brought up, automatically it's like, hey, this is not freedom of movement. Yes, it's not freedom of movement. Nothing to do with freedom of movement, and it's nothing to do with immigration. But you know, if you want to grow your economy, you need workers. If you can't bring in workers from nearby, you have to bring them from further afield. And this is creating tension. The Brexiteers are angry now that the people who are coming to do jobs are from Asia, from Africa. They used to be from Poland. They used to be from other countries in Eastern Europe. They used to be from Southern Europe. The Brexiteers were not happy then. So you can't formulate your policies based on how angry Brexiteers will be or trying to satisfy Brexiteers, because these people will never be satisfied. You have to put the country first. And I think there needs to be a real push to rejoin the EU and not tap dance around this. We want this, but we don't want that, and we want to cherry pick. There are countries in Europe that are climbing over each other to get into the EU. And they're not having these debates about, well, can we cherry pick this, that, and the other? And the EU is trying to say to the UK, you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Free movement of goods, but we don't want free movement of labor.
Okay, so what is the great prize if the UK and the EU can strike a veterinary agreement? Could we get rid of most of the checks and the red tape that have existed post-Brexit?
Indeed, but that requires regulatory alignment on sanitary and phytosanitary requirements.
Just on the youth experience scheme, is there much given?
So if there is an alignment there, when the EU changes the rules, the UK automatically changes the rule. And that's something that the Labour government want to do. But once again, there's always this fear about, we better not go too far because, well, Keir Starmer's opposition, Nigel Farage in this case, would be angry about this, and we can't do anything that would upset Nigel Farage. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's the feeling I keep getting. It's like, we need to jump, but we need to ask Nigel Farage first, how far?
And take there in terms of, clearly the UK government has a view about the potential numbers. Are we getting to a better place in terms of a potential agreement just in the next 3 months?
As I was saying, I see this work strand as fairly advanced, so hopefully we will be able to make a good progress.
Fingers crossed, because this year is the review of the TCA. Remember the TCA, the one that Boris Johnson signed with the European Union many, many moons ago? Well, it's up for review now this year. And it's a review, it's not a renegotiation. So if both sides say, hey, these things went well, these parts didn't go well, then they can try and iron out some of the creases. But once again, this is not about a renegotiation, and this is nothing to do with rejoining the European Union or being part of the single market. What happened in 5 years should have been spread across 20 or 30 years. Max, the UK can't join the customs union. It's for the EU members only. An UK customs union could be created just like the EU-Turkey customs union. Yes. So the EU and Turkey have their own customs union, and the UK could have one. But once again, we keep coming to this problem. If the UK is part of a customs union, then it will not be in control of trade deals. So then this is the thing that Nigel Farage and the Brexiteers will say, hey, we're not in charge of our trade deals anymore because we're part of this customs union. Now, I don't know whether the public have an appetite for pushing back on this, because most people don't understand how the customs union operates or how the single market operates. They don't understand these things. So it's not like back in 2016 where this was sold as, if we leave, everything will be wonderful. Well, the people who told you everything will be wonderful are not delivering anything wonderful, and nothing wonderful is arriving. So people may be more open to, maybe we should join this customs union, maybe we should join the single market, maybe we should even rejoin the European Union. I think the pro-European parties really need to push the benefits of this. Speak to business owners. We could get rid of all this bureaucracy. You could be back once again selling your goods into the single market without any problems because you'd be in the single market. But when it comes to freedom of movement, there's this idea that it's going to flood the UK with immigrants. The UK economy needs immigrants. Businesses can't access the workers they need. If you want to grow your economy, you need immigrants, you need workers. If you can't find the people locally, you have to look further afield. If you don't want to grow your economy, then fine. You can have low immigration, but then your economy will stagnate. And then people will say, hey, how come we don't have public services like we did before? So you have to get used to a situation where your public services are getting crappier and crappier because some people don't want immigrants. And then, of course, you have the problem of a population that is declining, a population that's getting older and people are having fewer children. Then who is going to pay the pensions? Because forget this idea that old people who are receiving their pension now paid in at the beginning. No, it doesn't operate like that, unless it's a private pension. But generally, the state pension is based on the people working today. If you have fewer people working today, then you're going to have fewer pensions today, lower pension today. Anyway, guys, we're almost at the end of the stream, so I want to say thank you so much to everyone who came on tonight. I won't be on the post-stream chat, unfortunately, tonight, but I will be on Friday. So before we go, I want to share with you this funny clip. Once again, thank you so much to everyone who came on. Thanks to the moderators for doing a wonderful job. as always. And thanks to everyone who sent a super chat. This one is Epstein related, so I do hope you enjoy it. It's from our old friend Matt Green.
As yet more files are released in the Epstein case, more famous names are coming under scrutiny. Our Royals, Rich People and Wrong-uns correspondent, Jonathan Goodenough, has more. Yes, that's right. Celebrities, politicians and business leaders have been bracing themselves for the release of these files, desperately hoping that they don't appear in them, in very much the opposite way that they wait for the Sunday Times Rich List. And presumably there's quite a lot of overlap. As Venn diagrams go, I would guess it's not far off a circle. So who has been mentioned? Well, there are the usual suspects such as President Bill Clinton, President Donald Trump and Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, but it should be said that they haven't been accused of any wrongdoing. Sorry? Then there's Sarah Ferguson, Elon Musk, Richard Branson, Noam Chomsky, although it should be added that they haven't been accused of any wrongdoing. Okay, but then there's Larry Summers, Howard Lutnick, Bill Gates, Steve Bannon, although it should be added that none of them... Why do you keep saying that? What? They haven't been accused of any wrongdoing. Because they haven't been. By who? Anyone. Have you been on the internet? There are accusations all over the place. Well, no one official. Right, so what you mean is they haven't been charged with any crimes. Yes. Yet. Yes. Yet. And they all deny any wrongdoing. Is that just a legal disclaimer? Of course, I don't want to get sued, or worse. Are you accusing them of having people assassinated? God, no, I'd never do that. None of those people have ever been accused of doing that. And if they had, do you really think I'd mention it? So if none of these people have been accused of wrongdoing, why are we interested? Because there was clearly a lot of wrongdoing going on. Right, but no one can say who by. Well, by Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell for sure. And anyone else? Definitely. Anyone else you can name? Definitely not. Oh, actually, Peter Mandelson. Mandelson? Yes, for approximately the 100th time, Peter Mandelson has been caught up in a scandal involving rich people and money. Can you recap for our viewers the previous scandals? We simply don't have time. In fact, at this point, it might be easier for me to explain the times he wasn't involved in a scandal. And what will happen this time? Well, Keir Starmer's called for him to be stripped of his peerage, partly because there's a photo of him having been stripped of his trousers. Sounds a bit embarrassing. And yet it suggests he might have a future on OnlyFans. Only Lords? So what happens now with the rest of the files? Well, we'll spend the next few weeks trawling through them, finding any incriminating photographs or documents that prove that some terrible things were done by some terrible people. And will anything happen to those people? Some of them will have to resign, and they might even lose a peerage. Anything else? Probably not. Thank you, Jonathan. Next up, as Donald Trump hate tweets through the Grammys, we ask, what is it about seeing young, talented, beautiful and famous people that makes him so angry? And should TV companies broadcast a new awards ceremony every night just to keep him busy?
Wonderful, wonderful. So, guys, have a great week. I will see you on Friday, same bad time, same bad channel. Stay safe, take care, and good night.